Hey, Marlins fans! Welcome to a new episode of Big Fish, Small Pod here on the Fish on First podcast channel, your home for complete Miami Marlins coverage. I am Ely Sussman, our pod presented by our merchandise partners at About the Fans. Go to aboutthefans.com, scroll down to the FOF collection, enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to save 10% off of your order. At the start of each week, we do these prospect spotlight episodes, and here's a twist on the usual format because the All-Star break is a little bit closer than you might imagine, especially when it comes to the prospect side. These decisions on who to represent the team at the Futures game during the All-Star festivities, those get made pretty soon, just in a matter of weeks, I would say, which means that we have a good idea of who in the Marlins organization could get that prestigious honor. Most major league teams get 2 representatives per year, sometimes 3 if really weird stuff happens that open up a new spot, sometimes only 1 if there's not more than one that's actually deserving. Last year, the Marlins had Thomas White and Noble Meyer. If you're watching on YouTube, in this photo, you even see on the far left, that is Robby Snelling. So 3 guys that were all Futures game reps last year that are in the Marlins organization now, and we're going to talk about a couple of them right here. In my mind, assuming that the Marlins get 2 reps this year, I think it's going to come down to 3 of these guys, 2 of these 3 guys getting that opportunity to represent the team. And there's a decent chance that we get somebody going there back-to-back years, which is kind of unusual. But if it's deserving, then it is. These selections it's a combination of prospect pedigree and actual performance. These are not only the very best statistical minor leaguers that get this opportunity. If those guys aren't considered serious prospects by evaluators, that there's real questions about how that stuff is going to translate to the major league level, then those guys get passed over, unfortunately. So it's not just most deserving in terms of on-field stuff. It is a combination between how good these guys project to be and how well they're actually doing during the 2025 season. We'll start with Robby Snelling, who, as of this recording, is number 6 on our FOF top 30. He's going to slide into the number 5 spot when Agustin Ramirez graduates. Snelling acquired from the Padres last year, 6-player deal that sent Tanner Scott and Brian Hoeing to San Diego. Snelling was the headliner of that package, considering that he was the reigning Padres minor league player of the year in 2023, but had gotten off to a slow start. The Marlins bought low, and pretty instantly they bore the fruit of that decision. It has paid off pretty well. What stood out to me immediately last year is how sharp his command was when he came over to AA Pensacola. And this year, it's been a mixed bag where at times he's looked like the same guy he was last year. At times he's looked even slightly better. And there was a slump in the middle during May that has put his overall numbers back towards a reality when it looks like he might be really breaking out. Overall, it's a 4.0 ERA this season, but with a 2.97 FIP. That's outstanding. A 233 batting average against in 45 innings. That's across 9 starts for Snelling this year. Almost all of his walks came during a 3-start stretch during the month of May. Before then, and then after then, he's looked really sharp. As of this recording, he's coming off a career-high 7-inning outing with Pensacola. Entering this year, he added a gyro slider to his pitch mix to complement his nasty curveball he already had. His fastball velocity has rebounded too. That was part of the reason why his prospect stock had dipped early on in 2024, because he was sitting in the low 90s. And now it's a lot of 94s, 95s from Snelling. So if he's able to command that pitch, and if he's able to still get chases out of the zone with his breaking balls, he has a changeup as well. He has such a high floor for a pitcher. And that is what makes him, in some people's minds, a top 100 prospect in baseball, if not somebody that's on the verge of that, considering that he's still just 21 years old and already getting a ton of reps at the AA level that date back to last year. Strong case to be made that he already belongs in AAA Jacksonville. If he was a future game rep last year and he's only been improved since then, it's a very strong case for Snelling to, again, be going back to that event, but this time representing his new organization.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
The other guys we're going to talk about are homegrown Marlins prospects. Joe Mack. I remember making a very strong case for Mack to go to the Futures game last year. He was the big breakout prospect in the Marlins organization in 2024, leading all their minor leaguers in home runs while being a great defensive catcher. And it's been a lot of the same so far this year. I think we've covered him on a prospect spotlight earlier in the season, acquired in the 2021 MLB draft. And he's going to slide up to our number 2 FOF prospect as soon as Augustine graduates. Mack is currently at the AAA level. He started off this year in Pensacola, but quickly earned a promotion. And his slash line combined between the two levels, a 264 batting average, 364 on base, 428 slugging. That is a 128 WRC plus with 5 home runs, 3 stolen bases in 44 games. Yeah, those numbers have come back down to earth because he got off to an amazing start. You may have seen that he vaulted his way up on Baseball America's top 100 overall list. He was unranked and he went all the way up to number 50. So they love him. I still am, I really like him too. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that he is a legit defensive catcher. As great as Augustine has been in the majors for the Marlins as a hitter, we know defensively that there's some limitations there. And with Mack, there really aren't. He's a good athlete back there who does everything well. As a thrower, as a blocker, as a framer, as a receiver in general. He's going to stick as a catcher moving forward. The biggest question I had about him entering this year was his hit tool. He got off to that really thrilling start the first month or so of the season where he's hitting in like the mid 300s. And that has, as I mentioned, come back down to earth to now 264, where it's exciting. It's still a pretty pull happy approach from him. There is power to all fields. A lot of his base hits are going to come to right field, though. And in terms of actually just, making contact, that's been slightly improved throughout his career. Overall this year, a 25% strikeout rate. So it's right around average, a little bit worse than that to this point. The key is going to be how often he gets on base and how often he draws walks. He did that last year, 11% walk rate. This year, an 11% walk rate. To me, especially as somebody that hasn't been to the Futures game before, I would like to think that he is the closest thing to a lock in this group to actually get the opportunity for the first time in 2025. And maybe we see him in the majors at the very end of the year. I still think the Marlins are going to kick that can down the road to 2026 due to a 40-man roster crunch, the fact that the catchers they have in the big leagues right now are performing well, and that Mack doesn't even have to be on the 40-man roster until after the season. I think we see Mack in 2026, but I do think we see him in Atlanta next month as a Marlins Futures game rep to reward his continued improvement, especially over this last year and a half. Now moving over to another guy who is at the Futures game last year. That's Thomas White. He's been our number 1 prospect ranked in the Marlins org dating back to early 2024. He still is. Surprising decision to send him back to high A Beloit this year after he had so much success at that level the second half of last year. So similar to Snelling, I think he's somebody that has checked a lot of boxes to move on up a level in this organization. Potentially by the time the Futures game arrives, we may see White slide up to AA Pensacola. He was limited by a finger injury last month. He missed about 3 weeks because of that. He is back in the fold now. So overall, just 27 innings pitched this year, but a 3.33 ERA, a 2.68 FIP, 192 batting average against in the high A Midwest League. All those are great. So it's been a continuation of what he did last year compared to somebody like Snelling. The differentiator, the fastball is a little bit better and it's a little bit harder. I'd say his breaking ball might be even more dominant. That slider that White has against both lefties and righties. Maybe his control could get a little bit better if he's to reach an immense all-star caliber ceiling in the big leagues. I think he needs to throw slightly more strikes, but a common comp for him has been Blake Snell and a lot of those kind of traits where Snell is somebody who has never really been all that sharp from a command standpoint and yet has gone on to win multiple Cy Young awards because he has a deep pitch mix, gets so many swings and misses. White, for somebody that's still just 20 years old, he's filled out so much physically that he just checks a lot of boxes. This is what these guys look like. This is a guy that has a very high ceiling, even if he doesn't get the precision with his command to where you'd ideally like it to be. but I think he is somebody that is ready to be tested at the AA level. And it's just a lot of fun watching him pitch. As of this recording, because he's coming off of the finger issue, he isn't fully stretched out as a starter at the moment. That's inconsequential for the Futures game. These guys only go about 1 inning apiece in those Futures game appearances. In terms of a timeline for when he could get promoted to Pensacola, I think the first step to that is just getting him stretched out to 5 innings, 85 pitches again. And then once he does, I don't think there's going to be anything holding him back from continuing to move up the minor league ladder. We finish this off just a quick peek at what our top 30 looks like right now in this Marlins organization, where it takes that combination between prospect pedigree and actual performance to get in the Futures game. I highlighted these guys for a reason. You could stretch and make a case for Andrew Salas, who has been very good as the youngest player in the low A Florida State League this year. He's getting on base nearly 40% of the time. It's just there's no power to his game right now. It's unusual to see players that young included in the Futures game unless they're truly dominating in all aspects. There's still a pretty big question about his ceiling just because he's not hitting the ball hard at all to this point in his career. Starlin Caba, acquired in the Jesus Luzardo trade. He hasn't been on the field, unfortunately. He hurt his thumb back in April, and he's still on the IL. So because of that takes him out of the mix. Dylan Head is somebody that I'm still quite high on moving forward. Got off to a hot start this season. He's faded a bit where he's more of a league average hitter, still very dynamic as a base runner and defender. I just don't think the performance is there from Head this season to force that issue, although he's somebody that I think could make a Futures game in the future between now and his major league debut. And then finally, to touch on Noble Meyer, because he was with Thomas as a Futures game rep last year, it continues to be a mixed bag ever since he got to the high A level. Noble is putting up a 5+ ERA, just not throwing enough strikes, although he has had a couple starts lately that are encouraging. I was surprised that he got the opportunity last year, given that up and down performance. And then I'd be even more surprised this year if he does, just because he's already done it before and hasn't taken any tangible steps forward since then to justify it. So if I had to make a guess, I think the Marlins are going to end up sending Mack and White. If I had to choose, I think those are going to be the 2 reps. You can make a case if White is just too limited innings-wise and Snelling it goes on a heater between now and the break, maybe Snelling gets that opportunity this particular year instead. And if they get all 3, even better. That would be awesome if all 3 of those guys, White, Mack, and Snelling, all got the opportunity. That being said, it's still been pretty interesting to follow this Marlins farm system so far this year. We'll keep you up to date on future small pods to start off every single week. Thanks again for listening. I am Ely Sussman, brought to you by About the Fans. Go to aboutthefans.com, promo code FOF10 at checkout to save 10% when you order our merch for the FOF logo, other Marlins inspired designs. We appreciate all the support that we receive from Marlins fans for the coverage that we provide. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you again soon, and go fish.